Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Jess I Can. I'm Jessie. Thank you for being here and thank you for taking time out of your day to view my video. If you do find this video interesting or of some sort of value, will you please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment down below. That would really help my channel to grow, and it would help me to be able to reach more people, and I would really appreciate that. So for today's video, I want to talk about interactions with the public. And before I start that, I also want to say, as I do in all my videos, that anything I say here is purely based on my own experiences and my own opinions. I don't represent a group of people. I don't pretend to speak on behalf of someone else. Just myself, in the hopes that someone will find some value in it, and it's up to the individual to figure out what would be useful to apply in their own life and in their own circumstance. That being said, like I said, I want to speak about interactions with the public, and that has a wide variety of interactions, depending on the circumstances. So I think I'll start from the beginning and kind of give you a little snippets of my life story, as it were, so that I can speak of how it applies in my experience. My first interactions with the public is not really a memory of mine. It's more of a story that I've been told throughout the years by one of my sisters. And that story is that she used to take me out for walks when we were really young children. She would take me for walks, and people that would just come across us in passing would offer money to us. And I think that comes from, at least in those days, I think it came from a good place, where people saw two small children, and one of which who was physically limited. I think people, their hearts kind of went out to us and wanted to help us and contribute to enriching our lives in some way. But being that it was like mid to late 70s, maybe early 80s, there wasn't the type of resources and outreach programs that there are today to help and to donate and whatever. So people found it in their hearts to just hand us a few dollars here and there, and my sister always accepted with a grateful heart. And then she would take us to the corner store, and we'd go get chocolate milk or a sweet treat of some sort. And like I said, it was never a situation where it was like panhandling, and we never asked for money. It was just something that happened, because like I said, people wanted to help, and that was a very direct way, I think, in those days to try to help and to reach out. So that was my first experience with public interactions. I began to realize that even at that young of an age, I was different than most. Even if I wasn't sure how, it was pretty clear that I was a little different. Not that it was a bad thing. I don't think I really analyzed it too much in my young age. So, yeah, that was my first interactions with the public. And then moving forward a few years, I was raised primarily with my grandparents, and my grandfather passed away when I was 11, and my grandmother took over that responsibility by herself when my grandfather passed. Sorry, that one is still hard, and it's been like 31 years. My grandmother got me involved in different agencies and programs that worked with children with developmental disabilities, or specifically cerebral palsy. And in those connections, I became a poster child for United Cerebral Palsy. And in the early to mid 80s, they had telethons that were televised to raise funds for cerebral palsy research, and I got to be a poster child, which meant that I did things like newspaper articles with the news stations that represented the channel that the telethon was going to be televised on. I did television interviews the weekend of the telethons, and I did a lot of articles, whether they be in newspapers or magazines, leading up to the upcoming telethon. There was a lot of photo shoots and things of that nature. There was, at that time, there were some really quick and simple question Q&A type things for, that were geared towards young children, because I was really young and couldn't hold a long conversation, unlike today. But yeah, that was, I guess you could say, that was my first experience with some sort of public speaking and sharing my story with people, and a large audience. It's kind of, since then, it's kind of been what I'm passionate about, and what I enjoy. So after I did the telethons, when I turned 13, I was in what is now called middle school. Back in my day, it was called junior high school. I started going to junior high school and then high school. At that time, I had gotten an assistance dog, and my public speaking became geared towards that for a little bit. It started with school assemblies. That was the best way to kind of introduce myself and my dog to the school, and kind of answer the barrage of questions, at least on a massive scale, and kind of get them all done, so that hopefully I would have less of the same questions throughout the school year. At least that's what I was hoping for. The school assemblies were interesting, right? Because at the age of, you're in your teens, and I don't know, some teens just aren't really keen on being the center of attention and having, everybody point out your differences and whatnot. But I think for myself, having had the experience of the telethons, it kind of just made it normalized for me. It was something that I was already familiar with, right? I never really considered it, I don't think it ever really went to my head like, well, I get to do, I get to be the center of attention, and I, and I get, it's all about me. That has never really been, it never really affected me in that way. But as I was maturing and kind of coming into my own and doing this kind of thing, I started to understand that it was an opportunity for me to share my experiences, to give hope to others, or to inspire someone else. And that's where my enjoyment came from in all of it. Once I realized and I could see like this, or the aha moment, in someone, that's what really kind of lit the fire for me to want to continue to share my experiences with others, because I really enjoy that kind of a thing, and I really enjoy hearing other people say that, they have found their way to overcome challenges. That warms my heart, and it's a passion of mine, I guess. So yeah, in school, in junior high and high school, it started out with, because I had an assistance dog, I did the school assemblies, and then going along the lines of having the assistance dog, I did a lot of volunteer work for the agency that teamed me up with my dog. So I did a lot of in-office volunteer work, and I also did some television shows that were geared for teens. Again, educational type shows that were geared for teens regarding my life and my, how my assistance dog was assisting me through my life. And then, in middle school or junior high school, the health teacher for that school asked if I would speak at his classes, regarding my condition and what it was like for me to grow up physically challenged and how I managed everyday life. And I really enjoyed that. And it wasn't like I just spoke at the class that I attended. The teacher would give me an opportunity to get full credit to stay in his class for the entire day and share my experiences. And I really enjoyed that because I think it made me a little bit more normal and relatable to my peers. It was educational on many fronts, not only in the health class curriculum, but I think it made me more relatable as as one of the peers and a teenager who was finding a way to make it through life just like everyone else. So I really enjoyed that. And then after high school, for a little bit, I mean, there were periods of time in which, I went years without speaking just because the opportunity never came up, and I don't and I don't know, I didn't know the ins and outs of how to necessarily become a professional public speaker. Not that I would ever think that I'm the next, female Tony Robbins or anything like that, but I take the opportunity to share my experience anytime I can. So I guess YouTube was kind of the next logical iteration of that. But right before YouTube, I was attending the local JC for a little bit, and I was in the adaptive PE class. Love the adaptive PE class. I learned a lot about myself in those classes. I think my time at my local junior college was different because I wasn't attending the classes, or I wasn't attending classes in the hopes of getting a degree. I was attending classes to gain insight about myself, right? So it was a kind of a self-discovery period in my life, if you will. But at the local JC, I also did, there was an opportunity to, again, help with an article for that paper, and I got interviewed for that. That was good. Yeah. So, this whole public speaking thing and sharing my experiences is kind of what I've done off and on for the majority of my life. I really do enjoy it, even though some of these videos may seem a little rough. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes. I am generally really comfortable speaking to people. So, yeah, here we are. Beyond all of the newspaper articles and television appearances, I mean, those are just one form of interactions with the public, right? If you really want to get down to one-on-one interactions with the public, there were things like, when I was first pregnant with my first child, I went in for an ultrasound, and it was a very normal pregnancy, no complications whatsoever. It was just a routine ultrasound, and I went in there, and it wasn't being performed by my doctor. The ultrasound technician did everything, and she said to me, well, as far as I can tell, everything looks fine, but the doctor has to, write off on it or whatever. So the doctor that was there, that was on call, again, not my physician, but a doctor just to, write off on that the ultrasound was good, came into the room, and I'm laying on the table still, and I kid you not, he turns to the other technician and says, I hope this child doesn't get whatever she has. And I was kind of taken aback by that, and I was, my mind was just kind of like processing what I had just heard. And then I said to him, if you had taken 2 seconds to look at my chart, or to speak to me, because hello, I'm right here, you'd know that what I have is a physical condition and not a disease, and therefore cannot be transmitted to my unborn child. And I left. Yeah. I was not expecting that from a medical professional, right? So, then, shortly after my son was born, I learned very quickly how I was going to manage being in a chair and caring for my baby. So one of the things I decided to do was I would take the car seat off of the base when I was going to be out in public, and because I at that time I took public transportation all the time, right? Like every day I was on the local bus system. So so I took the car seat off the base, and I would put the handlebar that is for carrying the car seat in the upward position, and I would wrap my arm around it and have the car seat on my lap. And the reason I did it that way at that time was that there wasn't a lot of places where I would be able to set my baby down if I needed to, or a lot of the times, because as I've said, throughout most of my children's lives, I've been a single parent, so it was just me. So I would have the car seat as an option to have him sit in the car seat if I had to use both my hands. Always right next to me, of course. But if I had to use both hands, I could set the car seat on a bench next to me or on a counter next to me so that I could utilize both hands if I needed to. That was just how I did things until he was old enough to sit on my lap and in my seatbelt. That's how I managed to do it. All of that to say, I'm telling this story because when he was a newborn, I had him in the car seat, and I attempted to take public transportation with the local bus system, and they said, no, you can't do that. And the reasoning was that they said that their policy was that only one person could ride on the wheelchair lift at a time. And to an extent, I understand that, but as a mother, I said, it's just me. This is what I've got. So what would you suggest? And they said to me, well, you could hand the child either to his father. And I said again, I'm not always traveling with his father. Well, then hand him to someone who is getting on the bus with you. Excuse me? No, I am not handing my child to a complete stranger while we take the 10 or 15 minutes it's going to take to get me maneuvered in and strapped down in the bus. And then there was the issue of once I was on the bus and my chair was in the restraints, they had an issue with me being able to hold my child on the bus. And I had a problem with that. I had a really big problem with the whole thing. But I was like, why? Okay, so you gave me the reason as to why you don't want me to carry the child on the lift. But why is it that I can't carry my child once I'm on the bus? They stated again, liability reasons and da-da-da-da-da. What it boils down to is I had to contact an attorney that was familiar with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I had them write up something from their with their letterhead stating that they were an attorney and stating that I had a legal right and stating those laws to take care of my child on public transportation. myself. Because I told them, I said, I took responsibility for my child the moment I got pregnant for him. And there's no way that I'm going to entrust a complete stranger to handle my child. It's just not going to happen. And I'm not going to stop living my life the way that I need to, not just how I want, but the way that I need to, because somebody has an opinion on what I should or should not be able to do. So I had to carry that letter around with me and show it to pretty much every driver in the company, sometimes twice, so that I would be allowed to take care of my children on public transportation myself. If you fast forward 4 years later, having my second son, I ran into one driver who tried to give me those limitations again. And I said very politely, could you please call your base and tell them that Jessie Morgan is sitting here with her 2 sons, and I would very much like to get on the bus to get to my appointment. And they did that, and they said, no, let her on the bus with the kids. She's good to go. Yeah. So that was one interaction with public transportation. Let's see. Another one is this. I want to say this, right? Being that we're physically challenged as independent, and again, speaking for myself, as independent as I am, and as much as I try to cultivate that and find new ways of doing things, and being even more independent, and discovering new stretches of what used to be limiting. There will come a time when you just need help, right? When I need help, no matter how hard I try. And I think that's true of any human being. At some point, everyone is going to need help. But I think when I'm dealing with being physically challenged, it's a given, right? It's going to happen. So my one reminder to myself on occasion, because I'm pretty good now, I think I have a pretty good outlook on things overall. I didn't get there overnight, but I have a pretty good outlook on things overall. But the one thing I tell a dear family member of mine who tends to be very stubborn and very opinionated and very verbal about her opinions is that, I love you, but you cannot be needy and be mean. You can't. You can't be a person who is in need of assistance and then be mean. It doesn't work, right? And it doesn't work for either party. It doesn't work for yourself. It doesn't work for the person you're seeking assistance from. So that's my one thing, is that remember, whether or not you are physically challenged, or if you're quote unquote able-bodied, don't be mean. Okay, nobody likes a mean person. We all have bad days, and I have days where I just do not want to deal with the public. I don't want to, I'd really rather not see people. I'd really rather not have people talk to me. But you cannot be needy and be mean. So if you're going to go outside and you're going to be in public, it would be in your best interest to make life easier for yourself if you figured out how to work through it before you left the house. Whatever it is, because it will pass. You cannot be needy and be mean. So, interactions in public, that's an interesting one because, once you leave the comfort of your own home, the world is the big box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're gonna get. You never know what you're gonna run into and what those personalities are gonna be like. I'll tell you one of my favorite things is when I'm in a store and you have a small child. I don't know, they're small children and they're curious and children are so honest, but they're children, so they're pure, right? It comes from a place of curiosity and not wanting to be harsh, but they're just curious. And it's always interesting to me because sometimes they have those parents with them that are a little unsure and a little uncomfortable. They don't want to make anyone else feel uncomfortable or awkward, and I think today there's this really big thing about being socially appropriate, and so they're always telling their children, don't stare, and you shouldn't ask questions because it's not nice, and all of those things. And I'm going to tell you something right now. For myself, okay, I would much rather someone ask the question that comes from a sincere place than to make an assumption. Because if you know nothing about me, your assumption's going to be off or sometimes outright wrong, and that's not your fault, other than the fact that you didn't take the time to ask the question. So let me be the one to tell you right now, if you're unsure if you should ask a question to someone, again, I can't speak for anyone else, but if you happen to see me and if you have a question for me, I would much rather you ask. And especially if it comes from a child, let them ask. Children are naturally curious, right? And I figure the more positive interactions we can give children, especially when it comes to dealing with other human beings, the more positive interactions we can offer them, the better, well-rounded people they will be. The more open-minded they will be to accepting differences and seeing the similarities before they notice the differences, right? That is so important, and I think that to create a mindset of compassion for people, no matter their race, color, creed, or orientation. I think to create the compassion for that has to start at a very young age, and children are, they're a blank slate, and I'm telling you, I can't speak for everyone else, but if you happen to see me and your child has a question, I'm okay with that question, because again, I'd rather the question be asked than the assumptions be made. Yeah, and I think sometimes if I'm willing to answer the questions, it can sometimes make life a little bit easier for the parent, because they then have a conversation that has already started, and then they can make the decision on how it continues, or if it continues, and in which direction it goes from there. Because a lot of times, the parents, if they haven't had the exposure to people with different needs, aren't sure how to address it in a manner that is going to be both informative for the child and non-offensive to the other person. I mean, today, I think social awkwardness runs in all of us because sometimes we don't understand, what may be offensive and what is socially acceptable. So, if I can offer a little bit of my own experience in a manner that is age appropriate, of course. I mean, I'm not going to go into great detail about, I have spastic diplegia, cerebral palsy to a 5-year-old because they're not going to understand that. But what they do understand is this. When I was born, my legs did not work the same way yours do. So I use a wheelchair to get around. But that doesn't mean that I can't do a lot of things. I do many things that your parents do and your other family members do. I just do it while sitting down. And that's usually enough for a young child. And then, hopefully as they mature, they'll remember that conversation, and the next time they are face to face with somebody with a different challenge, it's not as awkward. For me in public, the majority of people are extremely kind, and they will often offer to help me if they see me looking at something in the store and it might be higher than my range of reach. They often offer to help me reach something, which I am so grateful for, because that happens to me quite often. And one of the things that I always do is thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Have an amazing day. It's really important to offer that to people, because you don't know, they're going out of their way to help you, and it's a simple little thing. But the world doesn't owe you anything, and to express that gratitude to another human being just makes me feel good. Especially if, because even though that person's offering to help you, you don't know what kind of day they're having. They might be having a crap day. And for somebody to say, thank you, I appreciate your help, or thank you, have an amazing day. I have run into situations where people have lit up at that because they were just having a crap day. And I don't need to know that you're having a crap day. I just offer it, and that's that not only helps them, but that helps me as a person, because that's the kind of person I want to be. Those are the kind of interactions I want to have. Another one is a courtesy, not only for them but for me as well. If I'm gonna maneuver behind somebody, I always say, right behind you, just so that they're aware that I'm there and they don't back up as I'm passing and trip over me and risk us both being hurt. That's, common. Right behind you. I never make the assumption that because my chair weighs 200 and some pounds and I'm a human being sitting in the chair, I'm never going to assume that people can see me, because people are distracted with their thoughts or what's going on in their day, or they're distracted looking at whatever they're looking for in a store. And I'm let's face it, I'm not at everyone's eye level, right? So never make the assumption that I am I never make the assumption that anyone can see me, especially if their back is turned. I always say right behind you, or if we're walking on a sidewalk, coming up on your left or coming up on your right, just as a common courtesy for people, and for myself, right? Because if they crash into me, there's a good chance that I may get hurt as well as them. So, and I'm not, I'm not interested in that. So, yeah, interactions with the public. The other thing too is you've got to know going into it. Sometimes there's situations if you're going into a new building, if you're going into a new bank, or you're going into a new restaurant, or there are going to be things that you may not know about that surroundings that you may need help with. So kind of observe it. You know, sometimes when they sit you down in a restaurant, they'll offer you a seat at a table that has the legs of the table directly in the middle, underneath the table, but directly in the middle. And those aren't always the best option for a wheelchair. So I always say, okay, well, if there's not a table option where the legs of the table are on the corners of the table, that's my first request is there another table that would be easier for my chair to drive under? If there's not, then I always say, well, if I have to sit at a table where there's a large base underneath the table, then can I have an end seat? Because that will make things easier for me to maneuver. And when choosing a table, I always want to choose a table that's not necessarily hidden away in a corner, but I want to make sure that I'm in a position that's easy for me to get in and out of, but so my safety and ability to maneuver is my number one concern, and then inconvenience to the public is my number two concern. Is that particular table the best table for me to sit at? Because if there's going to be waiters carrying hot plates of food, and there's a possibility that they might bump into my chair, maybe I can choose or be sat at a table where there's a little less traffic, where my chair isn't going to be as much of a hindrance, because there is laws about accessibility and whatnot, but sometimes you just have to deal with the spaces that are available. And in situations where we're talking about not the design of a building, but the way of traffic flow in a restaurant, sometimes that can't be helped. So yeah, I try to be consciously aware of, okay, the waiter or waitress is gonna send me at XY, at table A, B, or C, but it might be that table D is a more suitable table. So being aware of your surroundings for me or being aware of my surroundings is really important, and knowing, okay, I'm gonna need help with this, right? Now that my children are older, they help me out at at ATMs or checkout lines where sometimes the keypads for your cards are adjustable, but because of my seat position and or the light reflections from the ceiling onto the screen cause a glare, I can't necessarily make out everything that's written on the screen. So before my children were old enough to help me with that, instead of using an outside ATM, I would go inside and I would either do all of my transactions at like a bank inside, or I would say, or I would go and get a teller that worked for the bank, okay, and say, look, this is the situation. I need to get cash at an ATM. Your lines aren't open, or whatever the case may be. I always looked for somebody that worked for the facility that I was trying to get a service from to assist me, because it was just safer that way, right? I wasn't asking somebody else who was standing in line to help me with the ATM or to help me work something out. So, and I still do that today if I need to. I don't ask the person standing in line behind me unless I know them. Hey, can you help me with this transaction? I ask the teller, or I ask the store manager. So it's really important to be aware of the fact that, number one, you have the right to ask for that assistance if you need it, if you don't have the assistance for yourself. But you need to go to the right person. Don't go to just anyone and be like, hey, I need help. Can you get somebody to help me? Because sometimes they're just an employee. They may not even know that service is a thing. So I always look for like management, because you can, at least here in California, you can go into a store, and I think it's all across the United States. Don't quote me on that, because I haven't been in every state shopping, but if you go into a store, at least in California, and you say, I need a shopping assistant, because obviously I'm physically challenged, I need a shopping assistant, they will, if they have enough staff, by law, they have to have one of their employees go shopping with you and kind of help you maneuver around the store and grab your purchases and put them in a basket and take it to the checkout counter for you. Those things are available. You just have to be willing to ask for them. And if you're not sure if they're available, that's where you go to management and say, I need XYZ. Is it possible for you to provide that for me? So that's interactions with the public. The one thing I will say is that you're gonna run into people who have their own opinions, and some people can't help but voice those opinions, and you as an individual have to figure out how you want to handle that. I had one situation where I was with my children on a bus, and it was an occasion where I was with their father, and I had another passenger. She looked over at me because one of my boys called me mama, and another passenger on this bus looked at me and said, she said, it's so kind of you to accept his children as your own. And I will tell you that back then I didn't have the maturity that I have today, and my response was a little less tactful than it would be today, I think. And I had to correct her. I was like, nope. I gave birth to these kids. It has nothing to do with me accepting someone else's children. These are mine. I will not tell you word for word what I said, but yeah, it was less tactful and but you mature with time. My whole point to that story is that everybody matures with time. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, because you'll get further in life. And I think you feel better about yourself overall if you can say that I did my best to treat people well today, the people that I came across, at least for myself. So interactions with the public can take many, many, many forms. And you're gonna have some days where people are going to be like, wow, I wish I had one of those chairs. I need to sit down. I need to relax. And again, I think people just don't realize what they're saying. But I have people who will sincerely ask me about where I got my chair, because they're not aware of what services are available to help them get a chair that they need for a loved one or themselves. But then you just have those people that will make comments like, I could really use a chair like that. I need to relax. Or that looks like it's fun to drive. Now, if it's coming from a child, that's one thing. Coming from an adult, sometimes I look at them and I just smile and I roll away. Or sometimes I say, it seems like it's fun until you don't have an option. Until this is the only option there is. And that kind of sends a message that maybe you should rethink what you're saying if you're an adult. Again, if it comes from a child, I'll talk to children. Yeah, it can be fun. It goes pretty fast. And my kids used to love to drive my chair. I actually taught my kids before they could walk and speak a whole lot, speak complete sentences. I had them strapped in my seatbelt with me, and I was teaching them on a very low speed how to maneuver the chair. And why did I do that? I did that because they were going to be around this chair for the entirety of their life. They need to understand how it functions, how it maneuvers, and how to be safe around it. Because as careful as I try to be, there are those situations, and I still have that today with my children, quote unquote, being grown men. They will squeeze between me and the smallest spaces, and they squeeze between me on the right hand side, which is the side where the controls are for the chair. And they're not always off because I'm not anticipating them squeezing between me and a doorway, or me in a hallway that's, 8 inches wide. Yeah. The more familiar my children got with the chair at a young age, the safer they could be. And the safer I could be. Because as safe as I tried to be, sometimes things happen. And if they're aware of how the chair functions and the power behind it, they can keep themselves safe and keep me safe. So that's my rant on interactions with the public for now. I'm sure after I upload this video, I'm gonna have a bunch of other things that I wish I had said, because that's the way it always goes. But for now, if you have any questions, leave me a comment down below, and I will do my best to answer any and all questions. Right now, I do respond to all comments because I am a small channel. So do leave me a comment, even if it's just to say hey, because I really want to grow this channel. I really want to grow my content. I really want to know what it is you think would bring value to the channel. What would you like to see? I want to post videos that you're interested in, because that's my goal. I want to create a channel that is of service and of value to people. So until next time, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And do like, share, and subscribe. Bye.